Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another discography review. Today we're going to be ranking and I'm going to be introducing you guys to the discography of the wordiest rapper in the game, one of my biggest inspirations and one of my favorites in the genre, Aesop Rock. For those who don't know who Aesop is, that's probably the best introduction I'm ever going to give. The dude is known for a huge lexicon. His verbiage is almost unmatched in the genre. He's a great storyteller. He's really good at just pinning rhymes together in a really abstract way that isn't too obtuse. And in the last couple of years, he's also shown himself to be a fantastic producer. I love his beats that he raps over, whether he's making them or whether he's with his old cohort Blockhead. I'm going to be talking about those days to the modern, his mixtapes, and his soundtracks that he's done. I'm also going to breeze through the EPs right now. Sounds like some pre-Labor Days shit. Really good flows, really tight shit. He's got one of the Tugboat tracks on here. He rides all of these beats really smoothly, and it's got that kind of lo-fi touch, that coded float. A really nice pocket of Aesop Rock, honestly. I mean, fucking Dry Spell has a really fucking tight instrumental that he just spits on. It's a nice little slice of really Aesop Rock.
Watch the staple gun up to my feet. This origami dream is beautiful. Pull the tail, watch the wing.
An expansion on one of my favorite cuts off of Labor Days. Daylight has Nightlight, which is the adverse of that track. It's also got shit like Forest Crunk and Alchemy, which feel like really nice. Again, Labor Days offcuts. In this earlier stage of his career, his EPs really just kind of reflected his golden age material in a really nice way. If you like this earlier stuff, if you like his first two records, you'll like these two EPs really, really well, and they pair really well with that early stuff too. Just more of the same Ace flavor that you love.
Gobble juice, tear gas, nozzle up, brain buff, hostile youth, chop it up, like a noose.
Now, Fast Cars, Danger, Fire, and Knives is actually one of the more interesting releases Aesop Rock has done, because unlike making a transitional album for Bazooka Tooth and None Shall Pass, this EP kind of serves as that. It's got kind of the cleaner production that coats None Shall Pass, and the instrumental to the opening track, even though he lyrically references Bazooka Tooth, feels almost like a weird melding of the electronics from Bazooka Tooth with the more organic-rooted boom-bap soundscape that was on None Shall Pass. Really interesting release. A majority of it sounds like a better produced Bazooka Tooth, but I'm not complaining about that, because even though I have really mixed things to say about Bazooka Tooth in some aspects, I like that this is another attempt at that in a better, cleaner sounding atmosphere.
You lack the minerals and vitamins. Treat hacks like
function for my unlimited Metro card turned to a pump.
The giant panda off the red list. Revolutionary since.
Now, I'm not talking about these three releases in multiple parts, because, just to put it bluntly, Aesop Rock and Homeboy Sandman have phenomenal chemistry. I love the instrumentals on a lot of these things. I think they blend both of their styles really, really well together. And I think it was a good introduction to me to Homeboy Sandman, because I never really listened to his stuff before. And I think his flow and writing style really pairs well with this vet in the indie hip-hop scene. I'd listen to them all together. Just listen to Lice, to Still Buggin', and Triple Fat Lice. They're three great EPs featuring two good MCs, spouting in that abstract kind of way. It's good. I know this seems a little hypocritical, but I'm not talking about the Uncluded or Hail Mary Malin, because I feel like those are their own kind of intimate conglomerate packages. It feels more like a joint effort between a myriad of artists, as opposed to Aesop and Homeboy Sandman hopping on instrumentals together. Now, let's rank his albums proper.
Spread between dense pillars of polar value lies a gray so blueless it's got eye beating for the sky.
Music for Earworms, like all of these records, isn't bad. It's just a really interesting start for Aesop Rock. This is his proper debut, came out in '97. It's got a really lo-fi style to it. It almost sounds like a demo that he cut into an album. There's a handful of tracks on here where he sounds hungrier than I'd ever heard him before. I never listened to this project until I was doing research for this album. I've always wanted to check it out, but this gave me a really good excuse to. And while he sounds the hungriest he's ever been, his flow is not quite as intricately done as it is in later releases. This is the most normal hip-hop sounding record Aesop Rock has ever done. And I don't hate that, but I think it's almost like Rush's debut. It's not a good representation of his character. And I really only recommend this to fans of Aesop Rock who want to see his humble beginnings. Right down to the fact that there's 2 tracks on here that are him on a local radio show just spitting freestyle, and it is so weird to hear him sound this raw freestyling wise. But outside of that, I mean, there's some bleakness in the lyrics. There's some talks about being a little bit of an outcast, and it has some of those nuances that Aesop Rock talks about in his lyrics. It's just with a little more bluntness. He still has some of the wordiness. He's still using some of his verbiage that he grows more and more as he continues to make music. But this is definitely the most humblest of beginnings. And it's actually fascinating because the record that followed this is one of my favorites of his, and it is miles better than this debut. Now, this is no knock to his prowess as a producer, and I actually really enjoy this soundtrack. I just think that this clamors for him to rap on it. There's so many instrumentals on here that work. They set a good atmosphere. The synth tones he chooses are very similar to the ones he was dipping on The Impossible Kid. It's so fucking weird to listen to this and not hear him rap over it. It works so well. It would work so well for that. It almost reminds me of the Ghost albums that 9 Inch Nails were doing in 2009. Only this is a lot more in line with Aesop's character than those were to 9 Inch Nails' character. Or to make a more accurate comparison, it's like the myriad of soundtracks Trenton Reznor has done in his career. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination. If you like instrumental hip-hop, this is a pretty solid release. There are a lot of themes that tie themselves together well in this score, and I think that for his first soundtrack outing, this is definitely a fantastic first effort, and I hope he continues to explore this, but as a fan of his entire artistry, this is not my favorite record of his.
God, that's good.
The Blob is this really weird amalgamation of ideas that sounds like a DJ mix meets like just a sampler, and it's holistically something I would expect Aesop to do, and I love it for that. It's not my favorite thing he's done, as you can see by its placement on the list, but it's an interesting listen. It's just one big track full of snippets and weird shit that Aesop pulled together that just didn't fit any project. I like this thing. I think it's really neat. I think fans of his abstract stuff or like a good kind of DJ mix would enjoy this thing. It's not the most adventurous thing as far as other DJ mixes go, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. I know it's essentially a scraps collection, but I do wish it were a little longer. I would just like to see what more he could explore with this kind of format. You know what I mean?
Literate. I ran with a brat pack of loose bolts and high social maladjust. Sacred, numb, and boundless. Went to St.
Now, this isn't a knock to Bazooka Tooth. Bazooka Tooth's a pretty fucking great record, but it is very, very weird. Following what many consider to be his best record, this just doesn't have the same sheer excellence within it. It's got its great tracks, that's for damn sure. I love the greatest Pac-Man victory in history. I love No Jumper Cables. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here. New York City Electric is a phenomenal fucking track. And tracks like It, Super Fluke, and Cook It Up almost remind me of expansions on the shit from Labor Days. Only New York City Electric is the best of that. The other ones feel like lesser versions of stuff from there. And even We're Famous, I love that he and LP have a track together on here, because as much as those two ran in the same circles, I feel like they didn't spit on each other's stuff enough, because they're two of my favorite rappers. But what I think hurts this record is, one, the production just seems a little less. It seems a little lackluster than his first couple of records. It's there on tracks like Frijoles and, Super Fluke, but it feels, even on some of the tracks I love, super inconsistent. This is a good proto sound for his later years, but it's in a really, really harsh genesis here. I like a lot of the ideas on this thing. I like how abstract it is, but it's just not as good and not as tightly put together as his releases after and before this. Out of all of his records, it's the one I listen to the least. As far as where it fits in the discography review, if you want a supplementary record to his later stuff, this would be a good place to go. Don't start here, but get to this at some point, because it's still, like I said, it's got some good moments. It's just incredibly inconsistent as far as some of the aspects of it go.
To the pine, yo, there's summers in the sky, no love lost, baby, the future is so bright.
I may not listen to this album as much as the stuff that follows this on the list, but I still listen to this a hell of a lot more than I do Bazooka Tooth. This fucking record has an impressive ass run. I mean, from Keep Off the Lawn through really Gun for the Whole Family, there is not a bad song. This is a good jumping on point to Aesop Rock's discography. It's got some songs that get out there, but it's not as excessive as like Bazooka Tooth. Tracks like Coffee and Dark Heart News and even Getaway Car and the title track are all really good slices of Aesop Rock that are digestible while having those lyrical ideas that he dips into or that are presented in an as obtuse of a way as his Golden Age material. The production on here is also fucking astounding. I love the beats on Citronella, Catacomb Kids, Bring Back Pluto, has that fucking classic Labor Day sound. Coffee is one of the songs that I immediately fell in love with when I was really getting into Aesop Rock, and I love John Darnell's from the Mountain Goats' vocals. I love what he brings to it. I love the atmosphere of that song. This is definitely like a really good record if you want Aesop Rock's typical style, but in a far more digestible fashion, and I think the reason for that is he's also got a lot of features that are from a wheelhouse that he used to run with, so everything just feels more well-rounded in that regard. Start here and then work around to other parts of the discography that I talk about.
I'm black 10, fried worms, chubby, brown grass, both sides, canned food, man-made tools, Atlantic.
Now these next two records I really had a hard time organizing, but ultimately I settled on this because it's a great start of Aesop doing it on his own. I mean, there's features on here, but Aesop produced this whole thing, and it's got the best weird lyricism that Aesop Rock has ever penned. I mean, he's got the track about mummifying a cat. He's got tracks about haircuts and the donut shop. This is the most fun Aesop Rock record since Float. But there is an adverse to that, and which makes this one of the more diverse tonally and topically records Aesop's ever done. There's glimpses of a more personal side, like on tracks like Go for Guts, where he talks about being lonely and living on his own. He mentions Kirby. He talks about his distance with his relatives and his friends. Tracks like Crows have these really grim, morbid, macabre imagery painted in them with discussions of death. Ruby 81 is a serious sounding song about a kid with fireworks. There's just a lot going on here, but it all fits together incredibly well. And I fucking love this thing. The production on here is so fat and big. I love the atmosphere on tracks like Zero Dark 30. Skelethon is what solidified my love for Aesop Rock, because he could have fun while staying lofty lyrically and dipping into just some weird ideas. If you want another good companion piece to None Shall Pass to get you into Aesop Rock, I'd do Skelethon, because it has all of these topics and ideas that Aesop is known for as far as storytelling, spinning a concept into an interesting way, and it has some really good hooks. It's just a little bit of a different flavor than None Shall Pass. It's kind of another good other side of the coin to that, if you will. It's a good, complete package.
Unraveling, either way his ID show a snake and skull. Always been a private dude who couldn't keep it.
Now, the only reason why this is here is because I love the two records up top the most. The Impossible Kid it might be on par with the next record as like a tie for number 2, because I could not put this thing down once it dropped in 2016. I think The Impossible Kid is a much needed, essential record for Aesop Rock's career. He spent almost 2 decades not really talking about himself. Like, he writes songs that kind of show you what kind of person he is. You know, you can kind of assume a dude that's this wordy of a rapper is a little bit of a dork, but he really flexes that on here, and he shows who he is, and he peels back the layers of symbolism, and just writes a really fucking good record. It talks about therapy, it talks about how he feels about the passing of Camus Tao, it's got a song about his cat, and that's something I can totally agree with, and totally relate to.
Hey, Kirby.
I love this thing. I think it's his most charming record to date. I think that its instrumentals are, bar none, so much better than Skelethon's. And I love Skelethon's instrumentals, but the Impossible Kids are just fantastic. There's a lot of old school sounding hip-hop shit with some nice synths. I love the synthesizers on this. Water Tower synth line is so fucking meaty. I love it. It's got that classic turntablism that I really like in Aesop Rock's style. It's very stylish. It's very idiosyncratic sonically of Aesop Rock, but expands upon his sounds in even bigger ways. This is another great step forward. If you're gonna branch off from None Shall Pass, listen to these 2 records. It's like None Shall Pass, one of his more accessible records. It's a great record. One of my favorites of that year. Another one of my favorites of the decade. It's a phenomenal release from a vet in the game.
A baddie senior citizen flashing that oval teethless grin. On a cornerstone merchant, rest on an elk tray with a stove.
So yeah, Float's great. Float's fucking near perfect. Blockhead's production is impeccable. I mean, there's a reason why he has 3 interludes on here, because there's a simple elegance to his production. It feels like how hip-hop should sound. And Aesop Rock just kills that, kills those instrumentals, you know? And he's not above speaking a message.
Tracks like Basic Cable, Oxygen, Fascination, Commencement at the Obedience Academy are all talking about life lessons, how to grow from your peers, and in Basic Cable's instance, just talking about how television rots your brain, but he does it in such a cryptic way that's incredibly entertaining to listen to. There's a lot of really cool shit on here, and I think it's a hell of a step up from Music for Earthworms, and provides a good staple for Aesop Rock's discography. If you want excellence, if you want to hear Aesop Rock in his prime, in his earlier prime, check out this record. It's got a lot of charm, it's got a lot of really good instrumentals. Like his albums like Skelethon, he presents these myriad of topics through the prism of really sharp lyricism, because not everything is serious. There's tracks like 6B Panorama, where he's just talking about the shit he's seeing outside of his apartment, all of the interesting things the world has to offer. And even though it ties itself more into the more serious aspects of the record, I'll Be Okay featuring Slug from Atmosphere has a lot of really good chemistry between the two of them, and it's not overtly abstract. So there's a good hefty dosage of the more out there stuff with the more digestible stuff. It's just in lesser doses here. Also, I know I'm shooting a lot of after, the review shots, but I felt like there were some albums that I did not do a good job at eloquently speaking on. Float is one of them. This record is, bar none, one of the better abstract records to come out in the 2000s. It set a good bar for his discography, and it built a better foundation than Music for Earthworms did.
With a line longer than your most walk meridian, connecting life with that little species of idiots.
And this is one of my favorite hip-hop records of all time. Labor Days is perfection. I mean, god damn. There are so many good fucking songs on here. Whether it's No Regrets, talking about the story of someone who just follows their dreams to the fullest. It's a hyperbolic story, but it's told beautifully. Shit like Daylight, a song about just seizing the fucking day. The 9 to 5ers anthem, shit for the hard workers, the grinders, the people putting their nose to the grindstone. There's a lot of relatable shit on here that's just told in a dope-ass way. Aesop Rock just demolishes these amazing instrumentals. There are so many cool sounds on this record.
I also just really admire how Aesop ties all these story ideas and these different concepts lyrically under the umbrella of labor. The whole record's about the grind, the hustle, building yourself up, the hard workers, and just persevering through life amidst the struggle. But it all fits thematically, and that's amazing. Plus, the features on here are so fucking good from a bunch of rappers that I'm not all that familiar with in the scene, but they do their damn thing and they kill it.
So many, not instant quotables, but fans of Aesop Rocks could quote you shit on this. It's wordy in all the right ways. It's got just a really good use of the platform to tell a lot of different stories and ideas to motivate people. And this is the pinnacle of that. It's the best thing Aesop Rock has ever done, bar none. And that was my Aesop Rock discography review. I know I haven't done a whole lot of hip-hop ones, but I figured I would do Aesop Rock because he's one of my favorites. He's a big inspiration of mine, and I want to talk about his music. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully I got you to check out one of my favorites in the game. But I'm going to go. I've been Viral Rack. You guys like videos, lives, and situations. I'll have another one of these out next month, and I'll see you another day.